Hey, and welcome to the Joie Miller Podcast. I'm Pastor Joie Miller from Champion Christian Center, and I am so happy that you're tuning in for yet another podcast. So grab your notebook, grab your pen, because this is going to be a helpful one, I think. I recently asked for suggestions on different podcast topics, and this one came in, and I was like, this is so good and so relevant, not only in general, but for the season that we're heading into, which is the holiday season. And the topic is dealing with toxic friends and family, dealing with toxic people in general. And I love the old saying, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And so heading into the holiday season, it's a time where we might collide with or come in contact with people that we wouldn't necessarily choose to be around any other time of the year. And that is the amazing people who we call family. And unfortunately, you're the normal one in your family, right? Everyone thinks that they are the normal family member. Praise God. But there are people in our families that maybe be more difficult personalities, whether that's in-laws or whether that's extended family, or maybe those are just friendships or coworkers that you come in contact with because of the holidays that you may not necessarily choose to be around any other time. And so, God calls us to protect our heart. The Bible says, above all else, protect your heart, because out of it flow the issues of life. And part of your responsibility to protect your heart comes with understanding and establishing boundaries in the relationships around you. And so hopefully you have established those boundaries, but the holidays can be times where the boundaries can be tested. And so I want to dive into this topic and give you tips. Actually, I created an acronym, which is super fun, that you can remember when you're going into situations that can challenge you, can challenge your emotions, can challenge your Christianity and your salvation sometimes, depending on the family members. But here's the thing, God doesn't want us to have disunity in our families, that the holidays are something that are supposed to be special and great. And if we're not careful, we can allow these toxic personalities to sabotage a season of our life where God doesn't want that to happen. He wants us to enjoy being around family, enjoy being around friends. And I can remember times in our marriage where it was stressful coming home from family events, that sometimes even some fights arose from the different situations that came up in the family gatherings. And so through the years and through growing in the Lord and growing in just the aspect of love and family, praise God, that's not an issue anymore. But I can definitely see how these relationships can challenge us on every level. So I want to give you some tips that I have implemented that I think can help you in dealing with toxic people in general, but especially toxic friends and family around the holidays. So let's jump in right now. And first and foremost, what I want you to remember going into this conversation is there's no such thing as a perfect person. And as much as we like to think that we are the perfect ones in our family, chances are really good we're still not perfect. And so when you go into this topic with an attitude and a mindset of grace, everything operates so much easier. When you understand that people are generally just imperfect, and we have to choose love. We have to choose grace for these people in order for the love and unity of God to flow in our friendships, in our relationships, and in our families like He has intended for it to flow. So even in the Bible, if you look at all of the family dynamics within the Bible, what we learn really quickly is there's not many that are ideal or perfect family setups. We see Moses, we see Esther, we see Ruth and Naomi, we see all sorts of dynamics. Joseph, oh my goodness, talk about a dysfunctional family and having to establish boundaries with toxic people. His brothers threw him in a pit and wanted him to die. And so when we understand that, then we understand, wait, okay, God, so what you're saying is you can redeem family, you can redeem relationships, you can redeem all of these things in my life, that I don't have to live in a miserable mindset when it comes to family and friends that might be challenging or toxic. So we're going to dive into this. I want you to take notes. Like I said before, it's an acrostic. So when you're going into that Christmas dinner, when you're going into that New Year's Eve celebration, I want you to keep this on the back of your mind. So T is take time to pray. Take time to pray before you go into the situations where you know your heart is going to be challenged. Matthew 5:44, Jesus sets us up for success in the area of relationships. Jesus is so good to know that people are difficult. And so he says, look, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Now, Aunt Martha might not be an enemy, so to say, right? We often say, Lord, smite her. Do you not see what she is doing? But most likely, your family is not an enemy. But the heart of what Jesus is saying here is this. What I want you to do is if there's a personality or a person that's challenging you, that maybe you are like just, is like sandpaper to you, that is just grating on you, what I want you to do is I want you to start to pray for them. Because when you start to pray for that person, you get my heart for them. You start to see them not through the eyes of how offensive they are or how rude they are, but you start to see them through eyes of compassion. You start to get God's heart for that person. And so it might seem silly, but the number one step to dealing with toxic friends and family is to take time before that encounter to really pray for them. Say, God, give me the grace for them. Give me love for them. Give me the heart of God. Help me to see them as you see them. And as you do that, you're actually setting yourself up for success because you're inviting the love of God now to flow through you into that relationship. And as we said, 1 Peter talks about love covering a multitude of sins or imperfections. I remember one time I had just come home from a family gathering and I was actually up in my bathroom and I was like, Lord, I'm trying here. Have you ever been in that position where you're like, God, I'm trying here? Went into this family gathering, was excited to be there, and that person that always grades me said something really rude to me, and it hurt. And I'm like, Lord, can you do something about this? Can you intervene in this situation? Because I feel like my heart is always in a place where it's not protected. I feel like in that moment, you feel like that boundary is always crossed and your heart's challenged again. And I'm like, Lord, I don't want to have to, continually deal with unforgiveness and bitterness because my heart's being exposed to these things. Help me, intervene. And I thought, just when I thought that Lord was going to give me a word like, yeah, they're horrible, just ignore them. Don't be a part of family gatherings anymore. He said this to me. He said, you need to love more. You need to love more. And I'm like, whose side are you on, God? Like, do you not see what this person is doing to me? And the truth is that God was calling me to love more because love is a supernatural protection over our hearts. He wasn't asking me to love from the place of, do I feel like they're worthy of my love or worthy of honor? He's saying, no, get in a place where you pray for them, that you actually get my heart for them, that you actually receive my love towards that person. And so as you're going into situations that maybe you don't choose to go in, it's one thing to set a boundary line with somebody and say, you know what, I have the ability to cut them off and cut them out of my life because God's just not calling me to that. And then there's another element of when we put boundaries down, but we still have to engage in some level of unity together as a family or in relationships where maybe we have coworkers or we have to be together. And so, understanding that in those moments, taking time to pray, don't underestimate the power of even 5 minutes praying for that person or that family function to get in the right spirit that you're going to go in there in unity and love. So T is take time to pray. O, all right, you're taking notes. O is overcome negative mindsets and expectations. We've all been there. The car ride to the family event where we, if we're not careful, can get in a really bad space in our minds and our emotions. We can already say, my expectation for this event is that so-and-so is going to be rude. This person is going to be making passive-aggressive comments to me. I'm going to already disappoint this person. So what happens is I'm walking into that space with baggage of my own. I'm walking into that space with a chip on my shoulder now that I'm expecting there to be tension in the air. I'm expecting things to be a little bit strange. And what I'm doing is I'm succumbing to the atmosphere where they're setting before me. And God calls us to be atmosphere shifters and changers. So if you can learn, as Romans 12:2, to overcome those thoughts, to conform, not to conform to the patterns of this world, but to renew our minds by the word of God, to go into it with a positive mindset, a God mindset, that my expectation is that this is going to be a great holiday. This is going to be a great work party. This is going to be a great day today. Even though maybe there's opportunities that are going to arise, you can set those things aside and say, no, my expectation is in faith, that I'm actually wanting unity. Because if we're not careful through even murmuring or making sarcastic comments or even pinning them to maybe what they have done in the past, we are setting our expectation for a bad encounter. And that just draws and attracts that toxicity. It actually magnifies it. So when we get there, it's already a little bit tense in the air, and you're already like, okay, I feel this tension. I knew it was going to be that way. But maybe you're the one that is being a contributor to the tension. So being mindful of what you're bringing into this space. Psalm 26:2 says, examine me, O Lord, and try me. Test my mind and test my heart. So prayer tests our heart. We need to be careful that we're giving God space to test our mind, which is our mind, will, and our emotions, to say, God, am I in check? Am I in the right space? Because if I've prayed for them all morning, yet on the car ride there, I'm talking to my husband about how crazy that person is and how bad it's going to be, then I'm not guarding my mind, and I'm actually setting myself up for a negative encounter. And so be careful about that. Proverbs 4:23 says, watch over your heart with all diligence. We talked about this earlier. For from it flows the issues of life. And so guard your heart. Go into those atmospheres with a positive expectation, no matter what's been said before that, no matter what arguments about who's going to be where for what holiday. Go into the day saying, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. It is going to be a good day. And so take that vibe, so to say, take that spirit with you to change the atmosphere as you enter into those situations. So that was O, overcome negative mindsets. So we have T, take time to pray. O, overcome negative mindsets and expectations. And X. X is not a word that starts with X, but it has an X in it. It's exit negative dialogue. Exit negative dialogue. Toxic people love to drag you in to their mess. And so, a lot of times before we know it, we can get dragged into something. If you have a toddler, you can understand what I'm talking about. As a parent, you can give your toddler an instruction. And if they start to escalate, what happens? You as an adult lose all of your maturity. And before you know it, you're escalating to their level. You're matching their energy, so to say. And so we have to be really careful when we're entering these situations that include toxic people, that we are quick to exit negative dialogue. If they're trying to bait you in, if they're trying to put a jab at you, that you exit gracefully that conversation. You don't have to make a big scene of it and say, I am exiting because you are toxic. Like, you don't have to make a big deal of it. You can just quietly reposition yourself. You don't have to respond to everything that they put out there. You don't have to meet or match what they're saying, because toxic people are just that. They're toxic, and they will take their personality flaws or their issues and they'll try to poison you with them and bring you down with the whole ship. And there is nothing worse than leaving a family event or somewhere that you have had to encounter people that you might not necessarily choose to be around, where you just feel yucky. You feel like, wow, you know what? I engaged in that negativity. I actually fed that negativity. I played a part in it. And so, there is a way to exit gracefully and say, you know what, I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to set that right there. And I'm just going to go reposition and speak with somebody else in this moment. And so make sure that you are guarding that you're aware of that they're not drawing you into drama. They're not drawing you into feeling bad about yourself. And so put that boundary line there and say, you know what, part of me protecting my heart, part of me being able to love is keeping that space where I am not engaging in negative dialogue. So we have take time to pray, overcome negative thoughts, exit negative dialogue, and this is really good, and it kind of goes with the X, is insert truth whenever possible. Insert truth whenever possible. Ephesians 4:15 says this, speak the truth in love. Speak the truth whenever you can in love. And so what I would say to this is part of inserting truth is not receiving the projections that toxic person is trying to put on you. Many times a toxic person will act in a certain way that causes you to want to fit into the mold that they're creating for you. So maybe they're upset because you were late for a Christmas dinner, and so they're trying to make you feel guilty, even though you told them you would be there at a certain time, even though they knew that you had to be with other family. Certain passive-aggressive comments can try to project on you to make you feel bad. And so instead of playing the game, instead of just engaging, like we talked about, in that negative dialogue or taking that on or causing it to put up a wall that now there's tension in the air, insert truth. Insert truth. Address it. See if your heart's pure, if you've prayed for them, if there's no malice in you, if they're not getting an emotional rise out of you, you can insert truth in love, which would be, no, we wanted to be with you so much, and we are so glad that we're finally here. And thank you so much for understanding that we are torn in a lot of different directions on a holiday season. And so what you're doing is you're taking that immaturity, you're taking that lie, really, and you're addressing it head on with truth. So they're not allowing you to get emotionally charged to a point where you lash out and get angry. They're not causing you to shut down emotionally and to where they're like, yeah, they're acting weird too. They're late and they're acting weird. No, you say, you know what, in truth, in love, I'm going to tell you exactly the situation. We love you and we could not wait to celebrate with you. Unfortunately, we have a lot of family that we're torn between on holidays, but thank you for understanding that, or thank you, for making this meal for us, and expressing gratitude in that moment, inserting truth of love and unity. And so even if it's a crazy family member that wants to speak a lie, insert truth. And so when you start to do that, you start to speak in truth, you start to see the Spirit of God come in. And what it does is it squelches out any disunity, any lies, anything that would want to start drama or start a spark of something that is going to just be the family dramatic event that happens that holiday season. And so just decide, I'm going to be a speaker of truth. I'm going to speak the truth in love, and I'm going to love the people that might even be unlovable in those situations. So we have take time to pray, overcome negativity, exit negative dialogue, insert truth. And the last point is connect where you can. Connect where you can. It's really easy to enter these family gatherings or these situations where toxic people are and just shut down. And I would say this, as a conduit of the gospel of Jesus Christ, as a Christian, you're carrying his presence and you're representing him. And so, make sure that you're spreading unity wherever you can, even if it's not easy. Trust me, I've been in situations where it would have been much easier to just shut down and isolate. But the moment I decide, God, I want this to be a good experience for my family. Your family is watching how you respond. Maybe you don't have kids yet. Your children are watching how you respond. And you have to ask yourself, am I sowing seed that I want to reap one day? Seed and harvest is a real thing, even when it comes to relationships and family. At some point, you have to make a decision. Am I going to stay better? Am I going to stay better, or am I going to get better? Because if I isolate, what happens is my children are seeing negative family gatherings. Maybe it's your in-laws, and they are seeing that you just do not like to go to your in-laws' house. And you're like, you know what? You go, I'm going to stay here. We're going to split our time. You're creating a pattern for your children. They're watching how you're responding, and that's going to become their norm. It's going to be a core memory for them. It's going to be part of their family makeup that's how we do holidays. Mom goes one place and dad goes the other. And I know for me, I was like, dear God, I want my family to want to be around us. I want unity. I want love. I want big family gatherings. And so as far as it is for me, I'm going to sow unity. I'm going to sow the right thing, even if it's a hard decision, even if it's me choosing love over my emotions. I'm sowing the right seed because I want to reap the right harvest. The end game is for you to seek and operate in unity. You know, one of the characteristics of Christianity actually is unity. And so we should be operating in the gifts of the Spirit more than anyone else. You know, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're even in a Christian family and you're like, you know what, these people are toxic Christians. Yeah, there's such a thing as a toxic Christian. Make a decision. I'm going to operate in the fruit of the Spirit. I'm going to be an atmosphere changer. I'm going to operate in patience, gentleness, love. That as it is for me, I'm going to sow the right seeds to reap the right harvest. And I would say this: give yourself permission to have a good time. Give yourself permission to enjoy your family. Sometimes we create such patterns where disunity and chaos is the norm. And we feel like if we leave a family event and we're not in chaos and there's not drama to talk about in the car ride home, then it is a fail. Well, I will tell you, it is 10 times better on the way home to say, what a nice night we had, to wake up the next morning and say, thank God for such an amazing Christmas, such an amazing family event, such an amazing experience that we had together. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Remember this acronym for toxic the next time you are going into a situation with people that maybe are a little more difficult. And I pray that it helps you get through it, not only to survive through it, but to thrive through it and start to enjoying the people around you in every stage of life. So take care, and I'll talk to you next time on the Joie Miller Podcast.